The South China Sea is a pretty turbulent place even at the best of times. Geographically, it lies in a region of which China considers itself to be the big daddy. But here's the thing, there are 4 other nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia and Brunei, besides the autonomously governed Taiwan, who have competing and often overlapping claims over parts of the South China Sea. But China claims pretty much the whole of the South China Sea, and this is clearly creating problems. Especially in the case of the Philippines, the friction between Beijing and Manila has often resulted in flashpoints. There have been repeated incidents where the Chinese naval ships have fired water cannons at the Filipino vessels or have flashed military-grade lasers at the Philippine Coast Guard. On occasions, China has even resorted to dangerous maneuvers such as ramming into the Filipino vessels that routinely run resupply missions to the BRP Sierra Madre, a World War II era warship that was deliberately run aground at the Second Thomas Shoal in the Spartly Islands to serve as a military outpost of the Philippine Marine Corps of the South China Sea. But why is there heightened hostility between the Philippines and China of late? The answer lies in the change of guard that has happened in Manila. When Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took charge in Manila, unlike his predecessor Rodrigo Duterte, who was keen on improving Manila's trade and investment relationship with Beijing, Marcos Jr. decided to make a clear pivot towards the United States. In April, when Marcos Jr. was hosted by Joe Biden, along with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at the White House, in the first ever trilateral summit of the 3 leaders, the nature of Philippines' relationship with the United States became crystal clear. On the one hand, the United States was promising investments to the tune of $100 billion, with the Philippines being positioned as a key link in the semiconductor production chain. Now this is logical because the United States does not want the global economy to be overly reliant on Taiwan and China for semiconductors, and the United States wanted to tap into the Philippines' nickel reserves, which are some of the biggest in the world and are a critical element in batteries and renewable technologies. But the Philippines' pivot towards the United States is not just purely economical. There is a clear military element to it. Joe Biden has vowed to defend the Philippines in the event of any aggression by the Chinese, terming the military relationship between the 2 nations to be ironclad.
I want to be clear. I want to be very clear. The United States defense commitment to the Philippines is ironclad. The United States defense agreement with the Philippines is ironclad.
Now make no mistake about this. The Mutual Defense Treaty signed between the United States and the Philippines is an old one. It was signed in 1951. And the American commitment for the defense of the Philippines has wavered depending on who has been in power in Manila. The Philippines is one of the most pro-American nations in the world. The Philippines in fact was an American colony from the year 1898 till 1946, and the United States had its troops stationed on the Philippines till 1992. But what is interesting is that the Filipinos for decades have had a very favorable view of the United States. But the turn the Philippine foreign policy has taken under Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will cause some element of concern to people who are watching the geopolitical events in the South China Sea. The optics of the recently held Balikatan military drills between the United States and the Philippines has not been lost on Beijing. Balikatan, which means shoulder to shoulder, were the largest in their scope since they began in 1991. Over 16,000 military personnel were involved, with the French forces joining in for the very first time. The Philippines tried to maintain that these military drills did not target any one nation, but the war games were held outside of the 12 nautical miles territorial waters of Manila for the first time, especially when the tensions between Beijing and Manila are at a boiling point. The Philippines has also been announced as part of the Squad. Yes, you heard that right, the Squad, a new grouping of 4 nations that includes the United States, Australia and Japan along with the Philippines to counter the Chinese challenge in the South China Sea. The objectives of the Squad is to counter coercion and aggression in the Asia-Pacific and to make the armies of the member nations interoperable in the event of a conflict. When you live so close to the dragon's den, it is prudent to have powerful allies who've got your back. But the one thing that you must not do is to poke the dragon in the eye. And Marcus Ferdinand Jr. in his foreign policy is walking on a knife's edge. And you do well to remember the wise words of the former American Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who said that it is dangerous to be America's enemy, but it can be fatal to be America's friend. For one wrong step by Marcus Ferdinand Jr. could potentially plunge the picturesque archipelago of the Philippines into a violent whirlpool of a contest between two superpowers who are looking to dominate the 21st century.